Welcome to the Heart-Centered Sales Leader podcast on webtalkradio.net. I'm your heart-centered sales leader and host, Connie Whitman. Thanks for joining us today. So I know every week I'm a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. This word sales, I truly am on a mission, and I'm trying to create a movement that we change that word sales from something that's just icky, sleazy, and kind of manipulative to really coming from this place of care, love, and respect. So to help you on that journey, please go to my website and take my free communication style assessment. It gives you your just natural kind of communication superpowers and how you're perceived. It also provides a report that tells you about your lowest or your most uncomfortable communication style. For you, that means your client could fall under that category, and it positions you to just be in better control of all your conversations. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA for communication style assessment, my gift to you. So my motivational quote today is by Beth Revis, and Beth says, "Power isn't control at all. Power is strength, and giving strength to others. A leader isn't someone who forces others to make him stronger. A leader is someone willing to give his strength to others that they may have the strength to stand on their own." Now, when I look back to before opening my business 20 years ago, I think about what I learned that I hope I still use today, that was good stuff. And as I moved up the ranks in corporate America, right, we're always learning. Well, the education and skill development of working and collaborating with people was actually priceless. Now, for me, I became so curious about other people's personalities, how they would come to certain conclusions that maybe I never even entertained or never hit my orbit of perspective. And I was always aware of people's responses, whether they were aggressive or tough or more on that softer, shyer side. That is what brought me to work with a colleague to create my CSA that I spoke about earlier, because that curiosity is what helped me create such a wonderful tool. So I challenge you, what have you learned throughout your career that still serves you really well from that collaboration point of view? Well, today my guest is Charlotte Allen. Now, Charlotte has over 20 years of leadership experience, including 16 at Kraft Foods, working with iconic brands. Now, she holds a PhD from the Ohio State University and is the best-selling author of Rebel Success for Leaders, Lead, Grow, and Sell Fearlessly. She's a nationally renowned keynote speaker for groups and organizations that are looking to break barriers, drive people-centered, meaningful change, and empower organizations and innovate to lead the market. So please help me welcome Charlotte to the show. This is such an important topic. So thanks for being on, Charlotte.
Wonderful. I'm really excited to be here, Connie.
Yeah, and that was such a great quote, and I think it sent the quote I chosen. I think it sets the tone for what you and I are going to speak about today. Now, I understand you're on a mission like me, right? My mission is to change that word sales, but you're on a mission that led you to write the book called Rebel Success for Leaders and Lead, Grow, and Sell Fearlessly. Just tell us about that and maybe why you wrote the book.
Right. So a lot of people, I'll define rebel first, because I think that's something we should ground ourselves in.
Cool.
When I think of rebel, I talk about it as uniqueness. It's something that we ourselves have or do that's unconventional. It's the thing that only we can bring. It's the thing that only can come from us. So when we're thinking about that in a professional setting, it's our ideas, it's our contributions, it's how we engage. Now, oftentimes when we think of a rebel, we think of people who are, a little bit teenagery, a little bit impetulant, a little bit off, not polished, right? However, when we think of success, we think of things that are, measured and things that everybody can recognize. And I really wanted to take those two very different things and put them together, because I feel as though everybody today can recognize they need unique ideas. They need to have people to bring them innovation or change and diverse ways of thinking from every aspect on that diversity spectrum. Most leaders recognize I need that, right? Most leaders will do training to help people understand that it's needed. However, most leaders will also agree that it's not quite delivering on what they need, right? That diversity is difficult to manage. That diversity is hard for them to figure out how to actually draw the greatest benefit from. They will say, my people leave. They will say they stop giving ideas. They will say things like, I can't get my organization to like toe the line and, march behind a goal because they're all over here, popping off with these ideas. I need to have something streamlined. And it always has struck me that they end up squashing that thing that they need so desperately in the uniqueness of their people. So I'm on a mission to help folks, organizations and leaders, help them really connect that uniqueness that they so desperately need, whether they're in innovation or whether they're trying to drive change or whether they're trying to up their leaders, and connect that truly with success beyond just that awareness that it's needed.
That word rebel, I think, can annotate or connotate a negative word. So I'm glad that you grounded that. Here's the other thing too, Charlotte, right? Leadership is such an important part of an organization. And I know working with different companies, sometimes we get promoted because we were good at the job.
Right.
Doesn't mean we're good at being a leader, right? So all of a sudden, we're managing the process, but you can't manage a person, right? We have to lead a person. So I've always kind of differentiated the word manager and leadership. Just for me, managing, I feel you manage a process, tangible things, right? Measuring reports. Leadership is where the human potential comes in. So I know people interchange manager and leader, but I just wanted to share my differentiation. So
wonderful.
Yeah, and I think I know through my sales career, people have been promoted to management and they never should have been in management. And I'll just share one quick story, which I've shared in the past. I was 20 something years old, probably 26 years old, selling insurance. And I'm very good at connecting with people, right? That's just kind of my jam. So I met with this business owner, gentleman, and just hit it off. He bought $1 million policy. Now back in the 80s, right? That was huge. Yeah. And I come in and I'm on cloud nine. I'm 26. I met this business owner. He bought $1 million policy. Like, does it get any better than this? And I walk in and my manager looks at me and I'm so excited, bubbly. And he says, why didn't you sell 2 million? He should never have been a leader. He was great at production. He was horrible at motivation. So instead of saying something like, Con, that's awesome, your first $1 million policy. Next time, you're going to bring in 2 million, girlfriend. Whole different, same exact concept, whole different perspective, right? So again, promoted for his ability to sell, not promoted on, he was a Neanderthal, actually. He shouldn't have been a leader at all, in hindsight. So I just wanted so what's your take on that, the manager versus leader, before I go to my next question?
Yeah, I totally agree with that distinction between, managing stuff and leading people. I would also say that when you're thinking about leading people, I loved your quote at the beginning, because it is truly about leading through giving power away. So one of the stories that I've shared too is the big aha for me was when I actually stopped even thinking about what people were doing, if you will. And I focused my time with my team on truly investing in them. And that's how we spent all of our conversations, which was what's their growth, what's their development, not about their work as much. I would connect it with their work, but it was really about giving away everything to them and allowing them to shine, right? Allowing them to come forth with whatever they wanted to bring. That's a really hard thing, because you as a leader are still on the hook, right? You as a leader are still on the hook. So making that switch to relinquishing is amazing. It was an amazing experience, but very difficult to switch.
It is, because the buck stops with us, right? So we're thinking, I got to do it because no one's going to do it as well as I can, right? And I've shared in previous episodes, but I recently hired a virtual assistant, Denise, and who she has become my right hand, and she laughs because I call her my partner, not my VA. And
Yeah.
early on in our conversations, I shared with her, she's 20, I'm turning 60, so 40 years difference. Our perspectives are different, right? Our back, she's in the Philippines, I'm in the United States. I've been in business and in corporate. She's still a student. Talk about a vast difference.
Yeah.
Her innovation and creativity and the things that she's helped me bring to my business that, by the way, Charlotte, didn't even hit my radar. And initially it was, I have an idea. And I'd look at her and I go, oh my God, that's brilliant. Okay, yeah, run with it. She'd be like, oh, you make such a quick decision. Okay. And I'm like, you're brilliant. Keep bringing them. Listen, I might not always agree, but share, man, you are smart. And now fast forward, I have her eventually in 2022. I'm going to put her as a project manager, and we'll have, VAs or whoever she wants to hire under her to create the magic I want to do with my business. Now, here's the thing though. Relinquishing, initially I'm like, what am I going to give her to do? Oh my goodness. Right? Because it's like, I do this and I do this and but now I have to teach her, and you have to teach, you have to allow. And then the blessing has been, she sees things I didn't even see, Charlotte. So when you, and I love how you said that, when you give up the power and teach and explore and develop, magic, innovation, we're one-dimensional because I only have my experience. I don't have a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines who's a student. That's so far beyond my grasp. But the value she brings, it's the coolest. She's like my new best friend. I love her. She knows I love her, and I don't want to treat her like a daughter. I want to treat her like a partner, and she knows that because she's freaking amazing. So yeah, giving up control. I'm not, and everyone listening, it's not necessarily easy, but the flip side of growth and expansion is mind-blowing. So again, just my personal experience. I want to go back to the word rebel one more time. Rebel and success, again, you mentioned, doesn't kind of seem to work, but you chose that strategically for your business and the title of the book. Why, what was that aha moment for you to say, I kind of need that word?
So to your point, and what you observed about rebel is that people will initially assume there's a negative connotation to it. But people really, really get that they need that. People get that they need the diversity, they get the uniqueness, they get the off the wall stuff, because if you're in a competitive marketplace and you're trying to drive a new idea to market, or you're trying to drive some really substantial change, you cannot do that by doing what everybody else does. You have to have something really different, something unconventional, something game changing. But we all know that we cannot swirl in this whirlwind of a tornado that's called a rebel forever, right? And a lot of people who are very grounded in success think of that stage as very uncomfortable and very disruptive and very much like they don't want to be there very long, right? So my expertise is really bridging a lot of these gaps. It's really, how do we take that, value it for the huge thing that we need, right? And learn to bring that to the success. You cannot have one without the other, right? These are two vastly different paradigms. And really it's about how do we learn to push them, pull them together, use that creative tension in a positive way.
Yeah, that another interesting concept, Charlotte, because so I started my business 20 years ago. I'm in corporate. I still love my corporate clients. Last year with COVID, everything stopped. So, but there were a lot of business owners online that were still struggling with sales. So I thought, okay, create another whole division. I still love my corporate clients. I'm still hired by them, which is such a blessing, right? But now I have this other, I have the time to build this separate division. And I hired a man, Jim Neisanger. So a shout out to my buddy, Jim. And when he started looking at my stuff, I said, I feel like my messaging is off in my workshops, and I have so much in here, but I'm not sure what differentiates me from all these other people who are talking about sales. And as he got to know me, it was really interesting. He said, your stuff sounds like everybody else. And that's why you're not getting any leverage, because it's like, yeah, I've heard that before. And he said, and the funniest thing is, you've been doing this 39 years. He said, Con, people who've been doing it 20 years are like newbies compared to 39 years in sales.
Yeah.
And as he got to know me and spoke to me, he said, you see things that I've talked to so many people who are expert in sales. They don't even begin to hit what you see. You decode things as they're happening through conversations that most people don't even see. That was my superpower. He said, that's what you need to spotlight, because you're not just talking about build a relationship. You're talking about why, how, give examples. He said, you see things that most other people don't. Excuse me. We'll have to edit that out. Excuse me. So the excuse me.
I'll take a drink too while we're at it.
Yes, why don't we do that? As I sit here and cry. Oh my goodness. So with him saying that to me, I never would have seen that in a million years, because we're too close to our own stuff, right? Our own abilities. We lose sight of that whirlwind of what is the innovation that we could bring to the table, because it's so part of us. So so talk about superpowers. What are you really good at? Like, what are your natural superpowers? And why does this just make you so great at what you're doing? Like letting people go to Tasmanian devil world, but then, and show them how to come back, right? What's your superpower?
Right. So for me, it is, I would, if I'm going to simplify it, I would say that I can do two things. I can create a path out of nothing, or I can connect two very dissimilar concepts or ideas. Those are the things that I love and the things that I do really well. So I will say that I have had a ton of experiences doing this. Craft was great because they allowed me to be placed in a situation. They didn't know what the business outcome was going to be, right? They knew they had a challenge and they knew they had to fix it. And that's pretty much as far as it got. I got the assignment, and the assignment was, Charlotte, we have a problem here. We need to figure out how to do this, and what are the steps, and how to make this reproducible for the organization. So, and that happened over and over and over again. So I got really good at going in, like talking to everybody, because it was usually a situation where there were different silos, different organizations.
Sure.
There were things outside the company as well as things inside the company that were not connecting well. So again, all about people and change, right? But it was me going in and saying, okay, this is what I see, doing the assessment, and this is what I think we ought to be progressing towards to improve, right? So people would come back to me and they'd say, wow, I never really thought of that, or wow, that seems so simple, right? But again, it was just, we have a problem. We know we need to fix it. Please help. That was kind of what it was. So I love those kinds of challenges. I think creating something simple and understandable and something you need is really fun. So if you send me down a path and it's not like that, I have fun. I can figure it out, but it's really fun for me to create from these very turbulent, not clear spaces, and to be able to connect. It's almost like I'm a translator, right? It's like I speak two languages and I'm the only one who understands the two of them. So I help bridge that gap. So symbols like connecting or bridging or translating are all very common from a brand standpoint for me.
Which, you fascinate me because my energy is super high and you are super calm, clear, very critical in how you approach things, right? Where I'm a little bit of I'm like a little bit of the Tasmanian devil. So as you were describing that, you are like the iconic person or the poster child for exactly that position. The other thing, craft, isn't this funny how I think people ask us to do things without seeing or realizing, maybe is the better word, realizing that was your natural superpower. Yet they came to you to say, here's the sitch, fix it. right, figure it out
Yep.
because we don't know what to do. And they did it over and over and over again. So that's always, see, again, my communication model, right? The being fascinated and curious as to people, why people do what they do. And when you kind of sit back and observe a little bit, observation is a super important tool for every leader, right? But that observation, we can really hone in on people's natural superpowers, whether it's, again, subconsciously or consciously. But if you could get in control of that, think about how you can right your ship, how you can break silos down, because you're seeing with this beautiful clarity that's your natural superpower. So just such a, it's a cool superpower, you know?
Well, and it's really interesting too, because the other word that I hear sometimes working with clients now is like, you're this whisperer, Charlotte. You
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm a whisperer, right? And they're like, I will come in and I'll spend some time in a workshop, or I'll speak with somebody in a session, and they're like, oh, right. Why didn't I think of that? That's so obvious, right? Or yes, I get it, right?
Yeah. And when organizations have those silos, you don't see it because it's the us and them, it's mine, right? That whole mentality, probably because of how they were trained or the organizational structure that they came up through. So what happens is we lose sight of what the best alternative is. So it's like we don't have our GPS on, right? To see what the correct course or the best course would be.
Or you're trained to compete for resources
Yeah.
instead of collaborate for the greater good, because that's what you're trained for in an organization. I need the resources for my part of the organizational whole, and I have to fight with another part such that so it sets up competition, right? You're competing instead of collaborating, and that is always a path for disaster.
Yeah, I think that was the structure of corporate from many, many, many years ago, right? And then now we have to break that cycle because we can collaborate, not only Zoom, like we can collaborate with people in other countries that are part of our organization if they're doing something differently, but the means for us to bring it to this country or share it with another country, right? It's so much more viable now that we really do want to expand that perspective. It's hard though. It's not an easy thing to do.
Right. Especially, I think the tools are there, right? The ability to speak across organizations, the ability to connect is there. Again, the diversity awareness is increased. The need to sort of understand different perspectives. I think we still get stuck when the rubber hits the road and we are tied to a timeline and we're tied to a deliverable, and we say, okay, all of this is nice and great, but I have to get something done, right? So we steamroll past all of these great things that we've just learned in the spirit of the timeline, right? Or in the spirit of the objective, or in the spirit of we all must be aligned, right? We lose sight of continuing to gather that richness along the way. So I think there's still, to your point, there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, but there's still a spot where it falls down.
Well, it goes back to what have you done for me lately, right?
Yes.
What's your numbers at the end of the quarter? It's not even the year, it's this quarter. What have you done? And you know how fast look, we're at the end of the year. Where did that go, right? So what are your numbers? What are the measurements? Give me the tangibles, and we don't stop. The funny thing is, we can make more money, we can create more product, services, whatever it is, exponentially, if we would stop and collaborate initially and then run the wheels. But we do it, hit the road running, just let me put the blinders on, this is my objective, let me go forward. And here's the scary thing, Charlotte, and you must see it all the time. I know I see it with my corporate clients. Everybody knows it. We don't stop to do it.
We don't.
Right?
Because we're fearful of me as a leader. What's going to happen if I stop and do this? What risk am I taking? And how do I feel about that from a career standpoint? So it's a fearful, risky thing for a leader to do that. And they may do it for a little while, and they give you such a little opportunity to see if it works, and then they'll snatch it back, right?
Yeah.
It is hard. You have to approach this with the ability to demonstrate, again, the key successful wins. Is your project ahead of schedule if we do this, right? Are you making successful steps? So again, you have to go back to what's the measurement of success and how do you pull that together?
Yeah. And I have to share, Kevin Hancock is his name. He's the CEO of Hancock Lumber out of Maine. It's one of the old, do you know that organization?
I've heard that name before. Yeah.
Yes. And they're one of the oldest companies in the country, right, across the United States. And about 10 years ago, maybe about 11 years ago now, he got a spasmodic disorder in his voice. He couldn't speak. It was painful. And now, he has a very disconnected voice box, but it's not as painful as it once was. Well, you can imagine he's a new CEO, right? Young man put into this position, and he gets the spasmodic voice. So everybody's coming to him. He's the CEO. What do we do? What do we do? He couldn't talk. So he would say to them, what do you think? Because that's literally, it's because he was in so much pain. Well, what he found was all the division heads that were coming to him for the answers, as his father and grandfather had done, they started saying, well, I think I should do blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, okay, go. Like literally that was the conversation. Well, what they found is as soon as he relinquished that control, because they were the experts in their division, not him, he was the CEO. Well, they started to flourish. Now, fast forward, it's probably 11 years now. He's been on my show many times. I love him. He's just become a really good friend. But because of this disorder, 11 years later, that decade of time that he calls it, he dispersed the power to his team. He's changing his website. He doesn't want his name on it because he feels it's not about me. It's about my team now, right? That disbursement of power. In 10 years, the company had made more money in profits than his great-grandfather, grandfather, and father before him over that 100 and whatever time period. Can you imagine?
Wow.
So this is exactly what we're speaking about, though. It's creating that innovation, allowing people's voice to be heard. He says it doesn't mean I always agree, but they feel confident to say, I think there's a better way. So they're saving. And then during the crisis, he made more money than he had in the previous year before the lumber crisis, before the building crisis. So can you imagine? That's what we're talking about, though, right? His disorder created it. And now he says that disorder is the best thing that ever happened to him. He's happier. He's less stressed out. His people and they've rated his company, Forbes and all of them. He has like a 93% retention ratio.
Well, yeah, because they're engaged, right? They are engaged in their uniqueness. And I always speak about that. If you can get people engaged in their uniqueness, if they can bring themselves to work and feel like that's valued, they won't leave, right? Yeah. But as soon as you say, nope, we're not doing it, we got to follow this, then you've kind of lost them. It is really hard to gather that back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. If you have somebody at a division head, they're probably there because they know their stuff, right?
Probably.
So, why aren't we tapping that, right? And we're not, right? All right, so I have leaders that are listening right now, and they're probably thinking, I get it. I'm exhausted now. This whole thought,
you are exhausted.
It is, because they're thinking, I don't even know where to begin. So how do you address that when you go into an organization and you start pulling apart, right, breaking it down to rebuild it?
Right. So it is truly a lot of watching, right? So I like to talk to different parts of the organization because I think that's important. Or I'll ask questions about kind of what's going on, or does this happen, or does that happen? Or I'll give them descriptions in my past to say, okay, this kind of a person, does this person exist? So I'm really doing a bit of a fact-finding mission.
Love it.
Because they often come with a perspective on their situation, right? They come with, this is what I think is going on. And there's usually some additional components that we need to dig out, right? So really it's about the assessment phase first. Doesn't take long to do that, but then it's what's your goal, what's your objective, and then how do I help them get there? So again, it's bridging that gap. It is me thinking about what's the way to start. It's best to do this within the context of an initiative they have, so a project, or it's not just we're kind of just going to do it, right? We have to do it within the context of something, and then we take a team. I like it when organizations can assign an individual that they feel like can champion this from the inside that I can work with, right?
Awesome.
Because then you've got that internal knowledge, and you've got that internal sort of reason for this to go well, right, with this person. And then the organization has the talent and that knowledge embedded within themselves. It's not my job to be here with you and hold your hand the whole time, right? My job is to come in, help you with the situation that you have, change it, and then hopefully you've retained some of that knowledge, and you have people who can then take that forth to the next level. I think that's the best scenario. Sometimes it requires a few different leaders to be engaged differently. Sometimes it's about how do we do our processes differently, because people get a little hung up on the stuff, and sometimes the process is the problem, and sometimes, quite honestly, it's empowering the people to really truly speak up, because there's something else going on that prevents them from bringing their uniqueness to work. So,
and I see that all the time with the sales component, right? The companies that I work for, sometimes they're so bogged down with paperwork and reporting. And so when I say, but what's your follow-up? How are you reaching out to your clients? What are you saying? How are you tracking it? And they look at me sometimes like, you don't know the number of reports we have to do. Like, you're asking us to do another report. And I'm thinking, no, don't you have your CRM system? Sometimes they don't have a CRM system. So how do you function, right? So the processes become a critical component of you'll never be able to keep up with the marketplace if you have if people are being buried with spreadsheets and reports and this manual processing to share from point A to point B to the CEO to operations to whoever. You'll never increase your client activity, right? So that's just my perspective from the sales. So it's but here's the thing: sometimes you have executives in positions that's just how they've done it. So they only know how to do the reporting from that structure. So when you start talking about technology, they freak out a little bit, right?
Absolutely. But a lot of, for the clients that I work with, there is, especially in the STEM field. So I tend to work a lot with STEM field folks, and those tend to be ones who are seeing this turnover of talent, right? So you've got the folks who are not really technology friendly. I've always done it this way. And that is a statement that is probably a big, huge red flag if you ever hear anybody say, but we've always done it this way, right? That is a telling sign right there. But then you've got this need and this desire for this infusion of new thinking, right? And again, it goes back to that dichotomy, and how do you connect the two, right? How do you make sure that you're not just stuck in, we've always done it this way, or we've tried that before? And how do you make sure you're not just sort of giving up everything you've built by going to some, new system that, truthfully, people will need to understand. You will have, to implement that. And I'm shocked to hear you say that a sales organization doesn't have a CRM. That's amazing to me, but yeah.
Sometimes. And so a lot of times when I come in, right, I'm helping them build a culture, and I don't own a CRM system. I'm not affiliated with a CRM system, right? So I would never push my thing, because everybody's different and they have different needs. But I'll go in and say, we have to look at some kind of a CRM system. You have to be able to track this and generate reports. But what happens, the default is, we could track it, we'll make more reports. No, that's not what I'm saying. And it's funny because through my sales career, whenever they would ask for these detailed call reports, I would think to myself, what do you care what I said? Who did I call? What's the strategy? Because remember, we didn't have technology, because I'm that old, right? That we had to do these word. We didn't even have Word. We had typewriters. Oh my God, I'm really dating myself. But anyway, just what do you need to know? Okay, the basics, because you don't need to know the ifs, ands, and buts. It doesn't matter unless you're coaching me. Now, that's another conversation. But if you're just tracking report, who was it? Where did I find them, right? Was it a referral or my own lead, whatever, right? So you want to see that. What's at stake? What's the dollar amount? What is the product, service, whatever I'm offering? What's the time frame? Is it going to happen in 30 days, 90 days, right? Or longer? And when's your next follow-up? You don't really need more than that to track. Yet we need more. How much? What did you say? So that referral resource, how many other referrals did you get from them? Why do you care? That's my relationship to manage, right? So we do. We're humans. We get caught in the minutia of things, right? It's comfortable there.
It is very comfortable.
Yeah, we like comfort. All right, so here's the last question. We're really out of time, but we're literally out of time, but is there one important skill, one thing an individual could focus on to improve? What would that one thing be for you right now to share with people listening?
I would say the one thing you should focus on right now is, and I'll use the words very carefully, cultivate your network. So notice I didn't say build it. I didn't say increase it. I said cultivate it. And the reason I'm saying cultivate your network is that people today do not realize what is right there in front of their face, at their fingertips, within the network they already have, because they are not cultivating it, right? They're not, like your CRM example, they're not reaching out on a regular basis. They're not, having coffee on different topics. They're not keeping people informed on what they're doing. So that means nobody is in a position to help. You think people know what you're doing, but probably they don't, right? Yeah. So you need to cultivate your network. Increasing it's still great. Building on it's still great. But cultivating it, if you're not cultivating it, then why bother even having it? So that's what I would say you need to do.
More is better. More is not always better, right? Significance, when I say significance, it's that cultivation, that connection, that deep connection is even a better word for me, right? Deep connection is better than more connection.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes we're so fast to move on that we don't really see who's right in front of me, that what I'm working on, they'd be the perfect match to help me bring it to market or whatever it is. So it's fascinating. Love it. Cultivate your network. Wonderful. Guys, here's the thing. Do you need more Charlotte in your life? Yeah. So please reach out to her. Her email is charlotte@rebelsuccessforleaders, plural.com. Website, rebelsuccessforleaders.com. I will post it in the show notes. And thank you so much. She is offering a beautiful giveaway. So go to rebelsuccessforleaders.com/rating, RATING. Can you really quickly say what the free gift is?
Yeah, so it's to help you understand your rebel success characteristics. So I've broken it down into characteristics.
I love it.
Will help you understand your characteristics and maybe ones you may want to try and work on. So that's at a short stance what it is.
I love it. Can I take it even though I'm a relative?
Anybody's taking it. Yes, you can take it.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to take it because it's fun.
I'm going to go take yours too, Connie.
I know. Yes. See, and that's the thing. Doesn't mean mine's best, yours is best. It's about, I didn't even know that about me. Or, I've heard that a million times. Maybe I need to stop and address it, right? Sometimes it's just that reiteration that we think, I think I better stop and maybe look at that, particular flaw, strength, whatever it is. So, Charlotte, thank you for being on. Just such a important conversation. I love the bridge idea. So anybody, if you're struggling, please reach out to Charlotte. I think sometimes we just need that conduit to connect the good stuff and make it great stuff, right? And we just need that bridge, that translator, which you just so eloquently shared with us. So thank you for being on, and everyone really reach out, check out the website, Rebel, one more time I want to say it just to throw it out there, rebelsuccessforleaders.com. Again, check it out, see, and take the free gift /rating at the end of that. And again, all of it will be posted in the show notes. No worries. Thank you again, Charlotte.
Thank you, Connie.
Always fun seeing you. And thank you just for really good intel, good information today. Thanks so much for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for joining and tuning into the Heart-Centered Sales Leader with me, your Heart-Centered Sales Leader and host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I wish you all a wonderful week. Please take Charlotte's advice and just cultivate your existing network. Sit back and observe those in your orbit, especially at work, and see who might be able to help you correct, improve, whatever it is, or just maybe even make your life a little bit easier, you just using their zone of genius without even putting effort maybe from their perspective. So again, have an inspired week, everyone. I'm honored you're on this journey with me, and I always hope that you find the content valuable and tangible for you to create the change you're looking for in your life. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all next week.